Once upon a time, a ship sailed on barren and arid sand, heading towards a tower called the Sky Tower. The ship was led by a captain who looked like Donald Trump. Let's just call him Donald, who had a crew member named Moa. Their crew was heard screaming about the presence of a monster named Diablos. Their ship could not be controlled, and scene is shown with a female soldier leader, let's call it Alpha, who is listening to the radio where her friends or other teams ask the Alpha for help. On their journey, they chatted casually without knowing what they would experience in the future. One of the female soldiers asked about the markings that were visible in the desert, but the Alpha leader didn't pay much attention to it. They decided to stop and try to track where the other team was. One of the soldiers named Link found traces of a 10-ton combat vehicle that had just disappeared. When they were confused about this, suddenly a thick storm appeared in front of them, which immediately made them panic and decide to retreat. The combat car had reached maximum power, but the speed of the storm was faster. The storm, accompanied by lightning, enveloped their car. It was at that moment that a strange event occurred. A blue light coming from the middle of the storm seemed to envelop them and slow them down. Apparently, the markings were not ordinary markings. They were ancient technology from ancient times that was very sophisticated and was a tool for teleportation. They were all forcibly moved to another dimension. Adar realized that they were already on a white desert, even though they had just entered a storm. This incident caused confusion. Captain Alpha ordered one person to check up the hill to find out what really happened. Sure enough, there was a strange incident where they found the Bravo team car had been burned along with the people inside, and also found sand that had turned into glass. Suddenly, it made Captain Alpha shocked because only with very high temperatures could that happen. What was clear was that it was not an attack from the military. Surprisingly, an arrow appeared from the direction of the hill that hit the dinosaur bone. Who knows what it meant, but the soldiers shot it. And it turns out that the red color is just chalk. Link the sniper realized there was something back there under the sand speeding towards them. The strange creature was so fast that it even turned the soldiers' car over. And how surprised they were to see a giant creature that had horns and looked very hungry. Diablos, one of the king monsters that inhabit the desert. Running for his life towards the rocks to avoid the big monster, Captain Alpha told the soldiers to hide in the cave. Night fell. Captain Alpha gave directions to each soldier and one female soldier who looked panicked and did not believe the monster existed, when the Alpha captain suddenly gave encouragement. Suddenly, many strange monsters appeared that looked like scorpions in groups targeting them. Occasionally, the Moa helped the soldiers so they could run away, but all of them were slaughtered by the monsters. Captain Alpha is still alive, even though he is in the spider monster's bag. The captain managed to get out and saw that in another bag there were his dead men. Captain Alpha ran and accidentally found a medical box which contained oxygen, flares, matches, and several bullets. In the darkness, he lit a flare and found Link in the spider monster's pocket. Link was still alive, but he had trouble walking. The path they were on was dark, so Captain Alpha lit the next player. And to his surprise, he found a spider monster in front of him and Link's body, which had been eaten away by the spider monster parasite. Because of that, Captain Alpha used a lighter and oxygen to burn the monster and was forced to escape alone. When he wanted to reach outside, Captain Alpha was pulled by a spider monster that seemed not to want to die from burning itself. Because of that, Captain Alpha threw several bullets onto the monster's body, which was covered in fire, causing the bullets to explode, and Captain Alpha was able to save himself. Thinking that he was safe was certainly a big mistake. Apparently behind the shadows were spider monsters, who could not get out because they were exposed to sunlight. Captain Alpha climbed the hill to see how far his place was back. He tried throwing a rock to check if the desert guard monster Diablos would appear. Sure enough, when the rock was thrown on the sand, the monster immediately appeared. The captain was a little frustrated and felt thirsty, looking for drinking water, but the water was so smelly that he didn't drink it. exploring the rocks, and how surprised I was to find the ruins of a shipwreck in the middle of the desert, but there was still no water in it. Not realizing the presence of someone behind him, because of that he was held hostage and a battle ensued. They were even in a duel of attacks, but Captain Alpha had to realize the man's fighting ability. His hands were tied so that he could not fight back, and he was taken to a place where the Moa was hiding from the attacks of the monsters. Moa also drank water in front of the thirsty captain and ate moss for his life. After that, he mixed medicine to be used on his chest, which was a wound from the Borson battle. Don't forget, Moa also worshipped the statue for his safety. The next morning, Moa checked the Diablos, and when he entered his place, the captain was apparently no longer in the forge. But now fate has really changed. Moa is now being held by the Alpha captain. Not wanting to give up, he escaped easily, and the battle occurred again, which made Moa and the captain fall until they were about to enter the spider's nest. A surprising thing happened where the captain actually helped the Moa and gave him chocolate as a sign of friendship. Even though Moa can't speak English, they still understand each other to check Captain Alpha's vehicle to ask for help. They think of ways and plans to get through the desert guarded by Diablos and giant spider monsters. In the evening, Captain Alpha is seen waiting for the sunset. And suddenly a spider appears and immediately chases him without the monster knowing it is a trap. Captain Alpha and Moa become closer like regular friends in general. Moa taught to pray to a statue he made himself. Moa is preparing materials to attack Diablos. The materials were taken from the monster they defeated yesterday. Now they are training to fight Diablos, a very fierce sand monster. On this day, they made a trap from a large barrel that was thrown to lure the Diablos out. The monster was very sensitive to movement. They ran as fast as they could towards Captain Alpha's car unit. The Diablos monster chased them. The Moa used itself as bait so that the Diablos would follow it while Captain Alpha ran towards the car. Attack after attack, they launched assault weapon arrows, which didn't even work on the monster because its skin was very thick. Moa is overwhelmed fighting the Diablos, and now it is the turn of the Alpha Captain with his bowstring approaching the monster and making it run around and die. Seeing the Moa faint, the captain then took part of the monster's skin to use as a base so he could pull the Moa back to safety. But the sandstorm was so big that it made it difficult for him to travel and had to treat it on the spot. Fortunately, Moa regained consciousness the next day. They both continued their journey to explore this world because the Diablos monster was dead. Now there was nothing to be afraid of walking on the sand. They found an oasis and animals like dinosaurs. The captain asked permission to take water because he was thirsty. However, an animal appeared hiding under the sand. Fortunately, the Moa helped the frightened captain. Now they can eat well and sleep comfortably. However, in the evening a strange sound was heard. Apparently it was the ancient animal running because its leader was burned due to the actions of the ship's captain, who is similar to Dolan Trump. He had time to thank the world, but instead he was hit, which caused Captain Alpha to faint, realizing that he was already in prison. Apparently, the captain was held captive by this group of people. They were the adventurers of the Moa squad. The captain found a room under his prison which was a cooking area. One of the chefs is a cat who is good at cooking. At first, the captain was surprised, but what is impossible in this foreign world? Donald apologized for his misunderstanding in capturing Captain Alpha. Donald said that he was brought to this world through a magical portal in the Sky Tower. Donald will help him return to his world because Donald doesn't want his current world to be disturbed. Donald said that it wasn't just Alpha who was the first to cross this world. Dollar was fluent in English because he learned from people who came first. The next morning, they will head to the Sky Tower to help Alpha return to his world. On a dark night and in heavy rain, suddenly their troops were attacked by a large dragon that could breathe fire from its mouth. They all brought out their best abilities, but unfortunately the dragon's skin was really thick, until Alpha was cornered and finally he fell down, luckily without him knowing it was a portal to return to his world. Captain Alpha realized that he had returned to his world. Fortunately, help from the military arrived and took the captain using a helicopter. Unfortunately, the plane they were using entered a portal and had to deal with a fire dragon again, and the plane crashed. The military forces have tried everything using the weapons they have, but the dragon seems too strong for them to fight, so the dragon easily defeats the military soldiers. The Alpha captain then went up against it and managed to tear off its wings using a weapon he had from the previous world. The captain shot some kind of magical object that caused the dragon to burn to death. However, the dragon apparently was not dead yet, and the dragon almost killed the captain. Fortunately, reinforcements from Moa and Donald arrived. They said that they could not let their world become chaotic.